It is.
That's an amazing 12 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
A subversive 12 minutes, if you ask me. But it's wonderful.
Yes.
I'm curious what our viewers think about it.
Yeah, if you have any comments about the film, please just go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box. And
are we consumers or are we citizens? Does it make a difference if we make these personal changes that he mentions, or is it useless? And should we only focus on social change and political change? Does it really matter if I take a shorter shower? When I saw this film, I remembered when I was a young mother and I had a small baby and lots of new challenges. And there was at that point a huge pressure on new mothers to not use disposable diapers. And at the moment when I was juggling so many new things, they were putting this additional personal change, personal lifestyle pressure on new mothers all over. And at the same time, there were oil spills and natural, industrial disasters going on all over the place. And I thought, wait a minute, one oil spill is much worse than a couple of baby diapers. And so that was the very first time that I felt this tension, this competition between the pressure on on individuals to change their lifestyle and make all the changes ourselves, blaming the individual for what's going on in our environment, and then sheltering somehow capitalist, industrialist destruction of the environment. So that's my thought. Do we have questions in the chat box?
We do not at the moment have any questions. Okay, let me just, this film was very meaningful. It was very meaningful to me because you're right. People are always trying to, they're always trying to get you to change something. And it's not us that's necessarily the problem. It's a lot of things that are happening. And so we feel pressure. We want things to be better so that we're always doing something to make it better, but we can't do it without changing our society. And that's really the thing that we want to illustrate here today.
I'd like to hear from Alexander. He says he doesn't agree. That's an important question.
Yeah, come on, go ahead. Be alive. Turn on your camera.
Okay. Hey, all right. Turn on the camera. All right. People want to see my mug there. Let me see. So I ran a nonprofit organization for 15 years that tried to get people to hang out their clothes to save energy. And we worked on the right to dry. That's how we got all the attention, how I got on the Colbert Report, and they made a movie in England about what we were doing. And so it was focused on personal change, but we used that as a mechanism to try and bring about changes to the law. That we got the attention because of right to dry legislation, because the real problem is that in America, we don't have balconies. We don't build low-income housing with the possibility of drying clothes outside the way that we do in China, where I am right now. Everyone was using warm water. And, the Clinton initiative actually partnered with the environmental, the big energy efficiency group, ACEEE, and together with Procter & Gamble, got people to start through an advertising campaign using cold water instead of warm water to wash their clothes. And so that's a big deal. But the only way that they were able to do that and make that change was at the corporate level. So I don't think it's really an either or.
I agree with you that the corporate level has something to do with it. But in Germany, all of our devices, dishwashers, our wash machines, they use cold water and the device heats the water up. So we're not boiling water twice and that was done with laws, and that the laws changed the corporate behavior.
I think we're saying the same thing, which is that the way that you push the change can be through the corporation, can be through the government. We were pushing the right to dry legislation so that communities would allow people to hang out their clothes, because 20% of Americans live in community associations that ban or restrict the clothesline.
Yes,
and so we were using the laws. Yeah.
Yeah, I hated that.
What's
the community?
What's the biggest cause of house fires among appliances? The dryer. Yeah, like people just, they don't know about that stuff. And so there's got to be the education part, and then there's the whole ethical part. I mean, I wrote my thesis about Bill McKibben and an African American couple who were war tax resistors who lived in Western Mass off the and the Nearings, who started the Back to the Land movement, and the Nearings were the least effective about getting the word out, and Bill McKibben was the most effective, and that was sort of my thesis. But there's this whole ethical issue of, like, if Bill McKibben's flying all over the planet, the crap that Al Gore gets all the time for jetting all over the place. But he's more effective at getting the word out than Helen and Scott Nearing were. But Helen and Scott Nearing were living the good life. And so there isn't necessarily a right way, but there's definitely an ethical question here about how do we have to live? And I think Wendell Berry, who's my favorite writer, has wrestled with this really well. So when I teach environmental ethics as part of my AP environmental class, we struggle with, what is stewardship, and how do we take stewardship to the next level of not, having the arrogance of thinking that humans are saving the earth.
Yes, we're not saving the earth. We're saving ourselves. 100%. It's not, the earth will be here, whether it's, 1,000 degrees Celsius or flooded from sea to sea, from the top of the mountains to the bottom of the ocean is filled with water. The earth will be here. Even if we were hit by an asteroid, the earth will be here. It's us that has the problem, not the actual planet. There was someone who had a question. If you have a question, please write it in the Q&A. What did you say?
I'd like to, yeah, Carolyn needs to put her question in the chat box, but I'd like to read for everyone what Dana, one of our experts that we have had on last night, I'd like to read what she mentions here. The film is good in refusing to reduce the personal level, with which I agree. The problem is that he bashes green solutions, blithely claiming that they are as polluting as the old dirty ways without referring to life cycle analysis. The point is, to some extent, that we are so numerous on the earth that we can't go back to unindustrial society. Well, that's a good point too. Yes. I see validity in both points of view. We do need to have personal change, but we but we also need to have societal change. And to me, that's almost more, I'm not an expert. I'd love to hear from an expert, which is more of an emergency. I mean, we can recycle and recycle like crazy, but that won't change anything in the short amount of time that the scientists have suggested we have.
Yes.
So what we do, experts out there.
Yes, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box. So if anyone has a question at any time, please type it into the Q&A box, and then we'll read your question and attempt to, if there's an statement, and answer it. So we have something from John Craig. Also, if you're, when you write a question, could you also, in the Q&A box, could you also say where you're from? That would be really nice to know. So this is from John Craig. I've been very big on personal change. This film is giving me another perspective. Who will provide ideas for this, and how will this be disseminated? Who will lead the next, who will lead the actions that need to be taken? I think organizations like Greenpeace have models. And then he follows up with just a comment. Greetings to fellow AP environmental science teacher. Well, I'm retired now, but I still do what I can in the educational field. Well, thank you very much, John Craig, from wherever you are. Yeah, this film was very interesting to me. The guy that the film is based on an essay with the same title by Derek Jensen. And he's been called the poet philosopher of the ecological movement. This is David is in Wiesbaden. Hi, Ann and I are in Germany too. So nice to have you here. That it's not going to just be one or two people changing or a lot of people changing their habits. I'm a vegetarian. I'm not a vegan because I find it too difficult to adhere to. In Germany, in other places, maybe it's easier, but in Germany, it's very difficult to be a vegan, in my opinion. But I'm not doing it to save the earth. I've been asked this question a lot, and it's not to save the earth. I'm doing it because I don't want to eat meat. I am not interested in killing animals for my personal pleasure. And but I'm not some radical animal activist or lover. I just don't want to eat animals. Like, it's not, and a lot of people are doing it, but it's not enough, because it's not even, I mean, I wouldn't even say that people that are vegan and vegetarian are even 10% of the population. So the only thing that we've changed is marketing. Now companies have to market things to us. So we haven't actually done as much as we thought we, if people are doing it to make a radical change, it's not doing as, I don't know, opinions. Yeah. Hold on, we got a couple of things in the chat box. Let me just quickly look at them. Possible for you all to make other participants' comments and questions visible into the audience. If you are, I'm not sure if everyone can see the Q&A box, but everyone should be able to see the chat. The questions in the Q&A box are, I think everyone has access to the Q&A box. That's how you would write a question in there. I hope that answers your question. I probably did not answer it. Yeah,
I don't have access to the Q&A box, and I don't know if the other panelists do.
Oh, you don't see it down at the bottom of the screen?
I see it, but when I click on it, it's only open, answered, and dismissed.
Yeah,
There's
okay,
no way.
yes. As a panelist, you can't write a question but only the audience members can write a question.
Okay.
If you have a question, go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
I have a question for Alexander Lee, because he seems like he's got a lot of experience. How would you address this dichotomy that's mentioned in the film between being a consumer and being a citizen? As a political group, of course, we're interested in voting and so forth, but do consumers even have, do we have the power, really? Or is this just, you've heard of greenwashing and so forth, if you buy this instead of that. How would you address that? Citizen or consumer or both? What do you think?
Yeah, my goal is to be as effective as I possibly can, right? So if I set out to get people to hang out their clothes, and that's my goal, and wash with cold water, then I want to be as effective as I can, right? So one of the things that we did was work with Levi's, right? And they worked with Goodwill, which is an organization that I had some questions about, to get rid of old clothes. And that was a great thing. And then we sort of pushed them on the line drying part. So now the name tag on 501 jeans, and I think most of their jeans now, says cold water wash, line dry. And the cold water wash part, as I mentioned before, was sort of the Clinton initiative, and PG&E, Procter & Gamble, Tide. And so it's a combination of different things, but what is the most effective? Cynically, at the end of 15 years of trying to sort of individually get people to hang out their clothes, I really feel that, like, dropping oodles of dollars from PG&E was the most effective thing at changing behavior. Like, there are fewer people line drying their clothes than there are washing with cold water. if you compare 1995 with 2010, which were the 15 years that I worked on the project. And that's because there was a big investment of the Clinton initiative and ACEEE, a very large environmental organization, to really push behavior change. But I don't know. I mean, like, you know, this election is going to be a huge problem for a number of environmental folks because they believe strongly that this is the end of the edge of when we can actually do something, or maybe we're even past that point. So, you know, are we choosing Donald Trump, who's destroyed everything, or are we choosing somebody who's going to kill us more slowly? Is sort of the question that we're facing. So
I understand. So I'd like to put in a follow-up political question that maybe you can address, and Katie Solon is on the line too, one of our great political strategists in DA. I really want to know, Angela touched on this too, I want to know why the whole climate action topic is a Democrat subject. Alexander just mentioned the Trump administration is heading for disaster, but they breathe air, they have children, they're not stupid. So some of you with more experience, Katie's been at it a very long time. I don't recall that it was always an exclusively Democrat topic. In fact, it was Nixon who started the EPA. Isn't that true? So what I'd like to hear, if I could, from both of you on that, on the political aspect, and what on earth is wrong with our Republicans?
That is the question of the ages.
Alex, your
You're
mic
muted. Yeah, we can't hear you. Just click the button. Okay, there you go.
Okay, good. I did click the button. I don't know why it didn't work. Sorry. When I teach this, we learn about Nixon and the NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act, but there were many other laws during the Nixon administration. So there were a lot of good things that came out of that time period, simultaneous with the 50-year ago first start of Earth Day. The Clean Water Act, many of the, sorry, my son just walked into the room wearing a box.
Working at home.
Thank you, Harry. In a few minutes, yep. And so sorry for the interruption. And if we go further back, Theodore Roosevelt, of course, was a Republican and made massive contributions to creating the park system, or not creating the park system, but building the park system. So it hasn't always been that way. I think part of that was the deregulation that came with the Reagan Revolution. So a lot of what we see today are still sort of philosophical fights about how much government should be involved, right? But I'd love to hear some other ideas and other people on this topic.
Katie Solon, do you have some input on the political side?
Well, Anne, I think it's really a little unfair to ask me as I'm moving towards, it's only midnight, because I thought I was talking about phone banking, which I can do in my sleep.
That's coming.
But
you can do it now.
I tell you what comes to my mind, and thank you for the historical perspective, Alexander. You cannot lump Trump with the rest of the Republicans. You can't lump him with the Republican Party that Alexander was just referring to historically. I mean, he's proven that he is not capable of any kind of planning, of keeping more than one thought in his head at the same time. His focus is always on the short term, and it is on greed, it is on profit. So none of anything that has to do with, looking to the future, it's not in his capabilities. It doesn't seem to be. So climate is just one example of many, of any important policy or thinking that needs to go on. It's not happening in this White House. And we're seeing it every day. We're seeing it on every issue. I'm in Arizona right now, Alexander. I live in Germany, but I'm in a Republican state in a way, but it's not. We got all kinds of things happening in Arizona. I'm a new Arizona voter, but we have really some chances to make changes here. But I know that everyone is following their own state in the US, and you're paying attention to some of these governors that are doing a fantastic job. Governor Ducey is not. We have 57 essential businesses that never closed, including, hair salons, nail salons, golf courses, massage, whatever else. And his emphasis has been only on business, on profit, on business, and trying to keep the economy going. So, yeah. Anne, your question about it is an issue. Climate, of course, is hitting everyone, but for Trump, no issue is important except getting himself in front of the cameras every afternoon in the US and making us all suffer, and figuring out how he can get a hold of some of the stimulus money.
Yeah, I have to chime in about Republicans. There are no Republicans like there were 50 years ago when Earth Day was enacted. There hasn't been for a long time. They've completely gone over the edge with their propaganda. They have been being propagandized by the Koch brothers. I can't remember what their organization is called. American Prospect or something like this. Something like this. I'll think of the name of it, but they have been working for years to get people to believe that, industry is the most important thing and we shouldn't have any rules about climate or taxes or, clean air. We should be able to dump pollution in the water. They've been doing this systematically through, what are those Republican lawyers called? The group, everybody knows this. Somebody, no? No women? Okay, fine. All right.
You mean the Lincoln group?
Not the Lincoln group, but the one that's in college, that goes to colleges and finds all these people like all the judges that we have now.
Oh.
They're
Federalist Society.
Federalist Society. Thank you. Thank you very
You're welcome.
much. I couldn't remember the name. Right-wing organizations always have cheesy names, like they're really doing something good, but they're usually doing bad things. But they've been propagandizing themselves in their own virtuous circle for the past 50 years. And that is, so you're not going to find people that are like, oh yes, we've had, like last year, we had all these terrible floods in the Midwest, in Nebraska and Kansas and Missouri. They had all these terrible floods, and not one person said, hey, this is terrible. Our farmland is being flooded and we're not going to be able to provide food for people. They did give them money, but that doesn't actually solve the problem. That keeps the farmers afloat, but we need to have a reliable food source. And if it keeps getting flooded, or even every couple of years flooded, it's no longer reliable. We have something in the Q&A box from Dan Shuey. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The film brings up good points, but it isn't the answer of all of the above: societal action, industrial action, community action, and personal action. We can't absolve ourselves personally from responsibility. Yes, I totally agree. We can't. For example, large amounts of public and private money has been spent to make housing more energy efficient, but what's happening to the houses? But what has happened is houses are bigger and energy usage per person has stayed about the same. We need to do it all, public and private responsibility. Dean, sorry, I got your name wrong. Dean is in Seattle at the moment. I totally agree that it's a mixture of personal, public, and private. But right so far, we've mostly got our own personal actions. And maybe a few, we have a lot of good laws, but they're easy to skirt around. So here we are. Go ahead.
The fact that it ends up as a political problem is perhaps a good segue into what we're doing around the world to get out the vote.
Yes,
right?
That's right. That's right. I was just going to go into that. This is our Vote Earth segment. Vote Earth is a concept that was on the Earth Day website. And I just want to read a little bit to you about what they said about it. Vote Earth is a global initiative that mobilizes millions of people to demonstrate their concern for our planet by rejecting inaction and demanding change at the polls. And we have the power to drive change. Vote Earth encourages citizens everywhere to use their voting power to address the climate crisis, fight environmental problems, and restore, conserve, and protect the natural world. Communities around the world face devastating environmental challenges, including climate change, poor water quality, wildfires, oil spills, sea level rise, and biodiversity loss. Now is the time to build a more diverse, inclusive, and united environmental movement to accelerate the green economy. Now is the time to vote Earth. So it is the time. And we're going to talk about, another question. We're going to talk about some of the things that you can do from home right now to help get out the vote. But first, we've had like a little bit of a deep and serious conversation. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's what we're here for. The first thing I'm going to do is just give us a little bit of motivation. And I'm going to share a poem from one of our poet laureates. We have the Black Caucus has a poet laureate circle that consists of 3 poets. So this is one of our poets, Elaine Thomas. She's from Hamburg, Germany. You'll hear later on Jasmine Cochran. She's in China. She has an Earth Day poem, but this is a poem about what we need to do to get up and get ready to go. So hang on.
Time and time again, there shall be times for kneeling down, letting down, and sitting down. There have been times when we fought back, got knocked back, and got back up. It's times like these when we remember times like those. It's time like these when we need to throw out whoever and lift each other up, whatever. It's time like these for standing up, showing up, and not giving up. It's time like these when we want to be remembered for acting like those who did in times like these. So get up and go out and vote.